As you're willing and able, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. First up, as it always is public comment. We have no one who has signed up tonight, so we'll move directly into the report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, January 17th, 2024.
Very good. Nicely done as always.
Always, yep.
I didn't see anything that needs any attention. Anybody else?
Nope. Perfection.
All in favor? That is 4-0. Good. That brings us to the report of the chair. My only item is to note that we will be next meeting with the town officials on Valentine's Day, next Wednesday. That'll be at Southburg Town Hall at 8:30. And let me know if you want to go. And that moves us into the report of the superintendent.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I would ask the board to pull out in the back of their folders the policy on class size. So it's policy IIB, and it's under first reading.
Yep.
So at the last policy committee meeting, we discussed class size and just tried to talk about the impact of it a little bit. And so what we did was that Heidi did a really nice job of taking some research and kind of condensing it onto a form, talking about the value of class size, provided some articles that were done, some research that was done, a little bit sciencey, but just, there was definitely some research there. And then I was going to go through some examples of what it looks like and how it impacts things. And so when you think about class size, you got to think about a few different factors. Is that the physical space that our buildings have. And so that's one of the things, there's only X number of classrooms that we have. And so that's just something from a perspective that you just have to be aware of. And so one of the things that's a very dangerous thing about schools is that anytime that you have space that's freed up, it's like a mad dash against like who gets to take it over, right? And so then all of a sudden your infrastructure expands. And so you might have this room for a data wall, you might have this room for an IPT meeting, and then so you have to always be mindful and be nimble about space. So that's one part of it. So the next part is if we go through our current policy, the board has really said to the superintendent now and in the past, and I want to have this conversation because as we go into budget season, this is really important, that it is the goal of the board to be the lower or middle part of the range of the policy. So for instance, if we were looking at students in K-1, the class size range is from 14 to 18. And so basically the board said, we want to be in the 15 to 16 range. That's where we want to be. Obviously, we understand there's times that we're going to go higher than that, and we have to be mindful of that. But as a general rule, that's where we want to be. The other part just to be aware of is that this really impacts elementary schools far more than the high school, middle school. Because it's easy to do math to say I have X number of teachers that are in first grade and then how many kids are going to be per class. Where at the high school, as you take away teachers, you take away options for students to enroll in classes. And so if you start to pare down that instructional core, you might start to lose some of the AP classes, or you might start to lose some of the 4 and 5s, those types of things. And so that's the difference. So some of those classes may be a little bit smaller than others, whereas the elementary school is pretty clean. I have X number of teachers, I have X number of students, we can do the math. So I want to go through the policy with you and just remind you that the superintendent by this policy has the ability to go one above or one below the policy without having to come forward to the board. I know you've heard me say that before. And so pre-K is a set limit by the state of Maine. And so what it says is that in a classroom, there has to be one teacher for 8 students. And then if we went to 9 students, that would require another professional to be in that classroom. So it would be, in that tech, let's say with a teacher, we could go up as high as 16. But 16 is our threshold. We can't go over that. I don't have that +1 unless they go to the state and get this special blessing, which is really difficult to get. And so that's pretty clean. Kindergarten and first grade is 14 to 18 students per class. Where the elementary schools start to struggle, and it's really the biggest change, is when those first graders go to second grade, that policy changes considerably. So basically, you're adding 4 to the 14 to 18. Now it's 18 to 22. So there is an impact. So those second grade classes are going to be maybe on the average 4 students bigger than might be in first grade. That's just the way that the policy works, and that goes through the Great Work School, and then you get to Marshall Middle School. It goes 18 to 25. And then in Marshall High School, it's 15 to 25. Again, the plus or minus. The board has always given the superintendent some latitude at the high school, particularly around the AP courses. Some of those courses that they might have lower number of people that are involved with. So, any questions about the format of that? Okay. So now we're going to do a little bit of some math. So some samples here. What does it look like in action? And so at the back of this packet, right here, it's the kind of the research that Heidi condensed, and really basically I'm going to summarize the research. You can obviously read it for yourself, but what it says is that it's really changing your teaching practice that impacts the most. Unless you're going to substantially change the class size, class size is not the biggest factor that you would have. And so just to kind of keep that in mind. So let's just say we have an elementary school, and we have 77 students in second grade. And there's in first grade going to second grade. And so first grade, you might have more teachers because it's that smaller class size, that 14 to 18, but you go to second grade and you have 5 teachers traditionally. And so you would say, I have 77 students. I'm going to put them in my second grade, and then I'm going to be able to calculate what the class size is going to be. And so if you had 77 students and 5 teachers, you would have class sizes of like 3 classes of 15 students and 2 classes of 16 students. And so when you look at the class size policy in second grade, that would be below the class size policy outside of even the 1. And so one of the things that's always important to remember is that when we hire teachers, we hire them for an impact area. An elementary school teacher, they may be a posting that says right now the job might be in second grade, but in the next year it could be in third grade. You're certified to teach third grade. The following year it could be in first grade. And so that might say we're going to move that same teacher, maybe that's going to go to third grade rather than staying in second grade, to make sure we're inside the policy. So that's why that flexibility of moving staff around is really important for the board and for the school district to be able to compensate when the numbers may fluctuate up and down.
Yep.
And so you've seen years when we have really highs one year and then it's really tiny the next year. It's just sometimes this is the way it falls. If we did it the opposite and we said, okay, we're going to do 4 teachers, we would then have 1 class of 20 students and 3 classes of 19 students. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, that's in a little bit past the median, but it's still within that upper, within that class size policy. And so that would be a target when we looked at like, how would you make a decision? And so this is like, for me, this is hard numbers that when I start looking at stuff, and these aren't the exact numbers, just to be clear right now. These are just, I'm going to give you an example of what that would look like.
Yep.
Any questions about that?
No.
So that's fairly easy. The numbers are high, the numbers are low, make it work. Then we get into kind of the nuanced stuff. And so let's take the Great Work School, which is a little bit more realistic because there is some flexibility. And so right now at the Great Work School, we have 15 teachers, okay? And so next year, we're going to have a 4th grade class of 127 students, and we're going to have a 5th grade class of 149 students. And so, again, you have that flexibility to move a teacher around if we needed to. We make those decisions, and obviously staff is really good about that, particularly, go from the 4th to 5th grade level or 5th to 4th grade level. And so let's just look at the numbers hypothetically. If we looked at having 7 teachers and 8 teachers in 4th grade, for instance, what we would have is if we had 7 teachers, we'd have 4 classes of 18 students and 3 classes of 19 students. And so when you look at the class size policy, so that falls within the class size policy. It's on the lower end of that, but it falls within the class size policy. So that you would think, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's try it the other way. Let's now take away a teacher, and it would still fall within that class size policy, but now you're at 22s and 21s. And so why is that dangerous to be at the top side of that policy? Because A, you don't know who's going to move in, and so you've got to leave yourself some flexibility of students moving into the district. And so that's so you start to get in that away from that the middle to lower end of the policy, and you create some room that we can't say to a child when they show up in November or November, hey, you can't come to school. Our class size is already 22. That's not the way it works, and so you have to have some flexibility. And so that's a unique situation where both ways that you compute things fall within the class size policy, and that's when it becomes a little bit more nuanced, and that's when you start looking at kind of the bigger picture and what's happening in those classrooms. What's supported, what's the programmatic things that we're going to talk about, what are the space considerations. Some classrooms at Great Work School are huge and some classrooms are tiny, and so you can't necessarily say every classroom can take 22 students. So these are all nuanced things that we have to look at when we make those types of decisions. If you do the same thing in 5th grade, when you take a peek at that, you're in the same situation. So in 5th grade, let's say if you had 7 teachers for 149 students, you're again at 5 classes of 21 students and 2 classes of 22. So you're right back at that top end of the scale. And so now you're doing that dance around space and then the flexibility if students move in. And if you go to the opposite way, where you go to 8 teachers, again, you're at that lower end of the scale, the 18 to 19 students. And so I want to show you that just because, sometimes it's really easy. When it's really low, it's easy. When it's really high, it's easy. But sometimes there's a nuance. And so that would be an example of the nuance. So when I create the budget, what I do is go through this, meet with the teachers, then I will make a recommendation, and then have a conversation, because there may be times that involve staff moving around. And so just to be clear, so that's when we talk about, when we base our staffing on students, that's how we do that. We apply the policy that we have. So for me, that's the rule book that I play by. I apply that, and there is sometimes that nuanced decisions that you have to make in the middle. So that's kind of what it looks like to be applied. Any questions? Are there any questions?
Well, I mean, what do you ask? So what do you ask?
What I want to do is that before I go into budget season, I want everyone to understand this is how we use the class size policy to make decisions. And so if there's questions about it, I'd rather, make sure that the board, says, John, this is, we're concerned about this, we want to lower it, we want to raise, whatever we want to happen. Before I come here in March and say, here it is, I want to be able to make sure that we're all on the same page. So the rubric that I'm using in my mind as I create the budget.
We had a policy meeting last week.
Yep.
It's kind of, it was up for reading, the class size policy. So that's, when we had this presentation there, I think we all agreed, it's like, oh, no, we really should do this for the board, because
Sure.
now
Question? Did I miss anything? Okay. So we'll go through the process with the policy. We kind of came out of that reading feeling like that with the policies where it needs to be. There's a couple of minor changes that we need to have. There is, I believe it's in here, there's data from other school districts that we looked at as well, just to kind of give you a sense of like where we were compared to other school districts. Like, were we really high? Were we really low? And we were right in that same ballpark as most other school districts. I'm not sure. See it in here. The back of the page, maybe? It's studies in here. That's not in there. I can have that sent to. No, it's like 6 different policies. I think it had Cape Elizabeth, it had Wells, it had York, but just kind of said, this is what their class size policy was.
Yeah.
Just, I wanted to see where we were. Were
Sure.
we high? Were we low? Were we reasonable? Were we unreasonable? And I think, basically, we have a little bit more flexibility in our policy with that +1, -1, but the numbers are basically the same. Important note, the performance-based classes can have larger numbers. So if we're in a PE class at Marshwood High School, let's say, you're not capped at 26. You could have 35 students in that class. I'm not saying that's best education. I'm just saying that you could have 35 students in that class. Or if we have a chorus and we have 45 kids in the chorus with one teacher, that's fully acceptable within the class size policy. So just kind of keeping that that flexibility in your mind, that there is a little bit of a difference there with those types of things.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway was from the research that Heidi shared, that basically said something like, it has to be a super significant difference in lowering the class size for any.
Which was like, I think
academic
7 to
advantage,
10 students or
which is,
something, so
it
2 or
was,
3
like,
students.
super
Yeah,
significant. So,
yeah.
So we did a I mean, let's go back now 7 or 8 years ago where we did a lot of work around John Hattie and, basically what are those highest levers that the schools can look at when it comes to making a difference in the classroom? And so I think a lot of us initially thought, well, class size is the easiest one, but it's a small student teacher ratio that's going to make the biggest difference, and that is not the case. It's really about practice, about the ability to move students within the classroom. And so I think sometimes people fall back on that, obviously having less kids in the class, there's advantages to that. But from an instructional standpoint, there are higher leverage things that we can do other than growing the class size.
piece I wanted to highlight is that there are reasons why having fewer kids is nicer, right? But when I looked at the research, the outcomes, the academic outcomes are not moved by lowering class size by 2 or 3 kids, right? You might have more space, you might like it better, but in terms of achievement, that we don't see the impact.
There may also be some classes, I can think of 2 examples. A science classroom where there's a lab setup, that we may only be able to have 24 students in a lab setting. And some of that is set by state law. Some of that is just the physical ability to have students. If we're in a physics lab, we're in a chem lab, we're limited by the number of students. The other part where we are limited would be pottery, where there would be only, let's just say, 16 wheels within that classroom. So, you would probably cap the size of 16 to be able to maximize the usage, but we just don't have that space to have that many of those additional things. So there are other, depending on the course, some other variables. Okay, well, thank you very much. Principal Hoopter asked that he come today and talks about some new course opportunities at Marshwood High School. Some of this is in response to our workshop that we had a few weeks ago. So I think it's some exciting things. And so turn it over to you, Brett.
So thank you. We're at that time of year where we're getting ready to roll out our program of studies. In March, students start to pick the courses that they're going to sign up for next year. And so each department takes a look at what the current program of studies looks like. And sometimes it's a situation where maybe they tweak a sentence here or there to better identify what the course is. Sometimes it's a case where, we've offered this course now for 3 years and we really haven't had any kids signed up. Maybe we need to look at another option. And then, of course, sometimes it's, this is something we want to try. So I had 2 departments come out and say they want to try 2 new courses, which I'll hand out to you here. Let me see if we can take one. That's it down. And I want to start with the bottom one because I think it's easier. And basically, it's a drawing 2 course. Our drawing 1 course, we've got great numbers in that. I think we have 5 sections of that. They're semester courses, so 3 in the first semester, 2 in the second. And there's some really talented drawers in there. So the art teacher we hired this year, Ms. Dow, is looking to expand and do a drawing 2 to offer for kids. And I'm hopeful that might take some pressure off of the number of kids who want to take pottery. Because kids who love art, love art. And so they're taking the drawing, and then there's all sign up for pottery. And like John said, we only have a limited number of wheels, and we have 2 kilns that we've discovered if we can do pottery 2 classes out of the 4 a day, we can make that kiln work. But when we try to load 3 in a day, it's like too much. Yeah. We can't get things dried. So we made it work this year, but ultimately we had to tell 15, 18 kids, I think they were freshmen at the time, but like, you can't take pottery yet, you're going to have to wait. So I'm hopeful drawing 2 will alleviate some of that pressure. So that's one of the courses. The second course is something the math department came up with. It's called quantitative reasoning, which is a big word. Quantitative reasoning is a big word. What I'd like to do is read kind of the topics at the bottom there and expand on that. But the second to last sentence there, topics will include but not limited to proportions and percents, consumer mathematics, which could be balancing checkbooks, it could be simple interest, compound interest, calculating loans, house loans, car loans, those topics, along with graphing functions, measurement and calculations, because I'm not sure kids spend enough time physically measuring things anymore, but they really understand a ruler. And then probability and statistics. And we want to expand this over a full year course. And what Tristan Morel was able to do is to work out something with YCCC so they can earn that dual credit. Even though it's somewhat of an elective at Marshwood for seniors, it's something that can prepare them for real world mathematics that they'll see and get that dual credit at YCCC to gain that. So those are the two courses that I'm proposing today, and I think it comes up for vote later.
So this goes back to that kind of that concurrent course, I think was the term that the school counselors used a couple of weeks ago, where we have the ability to have it taught here, but be taken for YCCC credit. And so that, those are, I think, the area that we're starting to really start to grow in particular. And obviously, this had a great appeal because it does address some of the financial literacy concerns that were out there. Part of that is also covered in our, I believe it's our civics class during the junior year. So, now there's that second step involved with that. So, any questions about?
These are staffed, or will be
Yeah,
staffed?
they will be staffed, yes.
Without
In-house.
budget impact?
Yeah, no new
Yeah.
additional staff.
Questions?
Was there any student input on choosing these particular classes?
I don't believe so. I think these were done internally in each department as recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the art issues are real for us. Like that.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one
Yeah.
because it's not as easy to say like, oh, there's, we've had 40 kids that couldn't take pottery. Let's, add another teacher because now we talk about the physical space, the kilns, the
Right.
wheel. Like, so we're limited, and then the space that we have, we can't put 24 wheels in there. And
Right.
so like, it becomes a little bit difficult. And so the beauty of what Brett said is that the answer isn't no, the answer is just not now.
Yeah.
So giving another option would hopefully take some of the pressure off of that.
And I really wanted to bring it today. I know, I guess my meeting's officially the second meeting of the month, but I want to bring it today because we're getting ready to roll out the program of studies in the next couple
Sure.
of weeks.
Yep.
So,
And I do think that the students are appreciative of the dual enrollment option, so I think that just adds to choice.
Yeah.
So it's very, I
It's
think.
good.
I'm a math guy, so it's hard for me to talk bad about math because I love algebra 2 and calculus and all those things. But there is some truth to when am I going to need to use this stuff for. So I think this quantitative reasoning is
Yeah.
really more geared towards these are the things that you will use the
Yep.
remainder of your life. So
Yep.
Do we know how much of additional cost is going to be involved for textbook and math lab?
I don't know that part.
I mean, I would hate to think that factor would exclude anybody from taking the course.
Yeah, and the math lab fee, I think, comes from YCCC. I don't know
It's a
what that
seat
is, Joe.
cost, I'm sure. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
As you can imagine, we are in the throes of creating our budget. We're going to be creating the budget basically within the next month and presenting it the first meeting in March. We did receive our state subsidy, which is kind of one of those first things that needs to fall to be able to figure out where we are financially to make a plan. I just asked Ryan to come in to kind of give you a brief overview of where things are. We can dive more into the weeds when we get into the budget presentation, but just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what things are looking like right now. So Ryan, I'm going to turn that over to you.
So we got our state subsidy printout on January 17th. And I just kind of quickly went through the different sections and kind of said comparison to where we were last year, just so we could go through that. So section 1, which is the first page, right at the top, the number of students. So they take the October 2022 and our October 2023, they average it, and that's what they use to do all the calculation. That smooths out any kind of spikes in enrollment a little bit. And we ended up +1. So basically almost identical to where we were last year. They did not change, which they do sometimes, any of the student to staff ratios this year. So all of those stayed the same. Because we were +1 student, our calculated FTEs and everything were basically identical to what they were last year. The salaries for the teachers and everything went up because of cost of living increases and things like that. So if you go down to like the bottom of the page where we get our calculated rates per pupil, it was kind of a little bit higher at the secondary versus elementary, but we were about +$170 per student that we were going to get reimbursed, or that they were calculating as the cost for students. Moving to the next page, which is section 2, This is where they take, that was based on our attending enrollment. Then at the top of page 2 is our subsidizable enrollment. So the difference between those two is essentially any students that are tuitioned in or are Rollinsford students also are tuitioned in, paid for by Rollinsford instead of by like an individual family. Here, there was some pretty significant swings. Basically, the big one is pre-K. So pre-K, if you remember back when we talked about enrolled students in the fall, as we were kind of going through first day of school enrollments and things like that, there's a huge spike in pre-K this year. Those do count as our subsidizable students, even though they do not reside in district. So the total overall pre-K enrollment is plus 26 this year. When the state does the calculations, they do use the average, the 2-year average, except for the pre-K number. So that pre-K number, that plus 26, was a huge benefit for us. So we got an extra $237,000 in our subsidy because of that plus 26 students. So the K to 8 and the 9 through 12 basically are about the same. So not any huge differences there. So the increased money per student, the additional money for pre-K, if you come down to the bottom of this page, we're about plus $400,000 of where we were last year. So again, the state's saying the total cost to run the district for our subsidizable students is plus $400,000. If you go to the next page, they calculate the gifted and talented, special ed, transportation, and our bus allocation. Our bus allocation did increase. If you remember, we purchased or lease purchased 2 buses. We delayed the first payment to kind of align it with that increase in the subsidy allocation for that. Here on this page, transportation had a modest increase, gifted and talented had a modest increase. As Mr. Caverly alluded to earlier, the huge increase here was special education cost. That was plus $865,000. So that was a huge increase on this page. And then moving on to the next page, this is how the state breaks down how we're going to allocate the required contributions from the towns and how much the state is going to allocate us for subsidy. So at the top, we have the enrollment broken down by Elliott and South Berwick. Right underneath that is the state valuations. That's a 3-year average. So they take the 3-year average of the last 3 municipal valuations. Elliott was plus 74 million, which was an increase of 6.48% over what was calculated last year. South Berwick was an increase of 71 million, so almost the same amount of dollars. You can see that their overall valuation is significantly less, so that was an 8.21% increase. The mill expectation, so the state says you take your municipal valuation and there's a tax value that you have to apply, and that's how much the towns have to kick in for the cost of education. The towns have to pay that amount no matter what, or you don't get your full subsidy amount. I don't know if many people know that. Almost 95% of the schools in the state of Maine are well above what the state required contribution is. But if for whatever reason you were below, you don't get your full state subsidy allocation if you don't pay. So the required contribution for the town of Elliott did increase by $119,000, and the required contribution for South Berwick did go up $192,000. So overall, if you flip to the last page, section 5, that's our state subsidy total. We are going to be at plus $803,000 in state subsidy, which is really good news. You can see down towards the bottom of the page or the middle of the page, they break down the local share versus the state share. So we've talked about before, we used to be a 50% receiver. If you look at these percentages, you're like, oh, well, we're pretty close to that again. Again, this is just what the state is calculating for our total budget, which, I'm sorry, it's $27 million. I should have said that earlier. We, this year, are at about $35 million. We're probably going to be $36, $37 million for next year. So really that percentage that the state's paying isn't the 51% that they say. It's really closer probably to 37 and
This is
37.
51% of the EPS.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that's not like the total cost of the budget that they're
Right.
taking in. It's just the EPS calculated number. So if there are any questions, I know I went through that kind of quickly, and I look at this all the time, and I'm sure you're looking at all these numbers and going, oh, but
82.79 time is my favorite time of the year.
Well, if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to shoot me an email or
Thank you,
whatever.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Just on some exciting news, I know you've gotten some emails about this, but Heidi was going to share a little bit about our March 8th professional development opportunities.
So I have invited all of you. You've seen the workshops. It's all the preparation and planning for the day is going really well. We're super excited. As of today, we had 231 people registered, which is there's literally 14 people in the entire district who haven't yet registered. So I'm hopeful that they will. I know. The administrators are the worst.
I think I'm one and registered.
So I couldn't be happier. I will talk more about it on the 8th and really give a shout out to the team of teachers that have been working with me to put this together. Amazing group of people that are just so energized and so fun to work with and really excited about the day that they're pulling together for their peers, which is amazing. And part of our work has been reaching out to the community for support. We've never done a day totally like this before, and I was able to budget a little bit of money in a federal grant, but not really enough to pull it off. So we reached out to the community, and the community was really generous back to us, which we appreciate. And there are some donations that I'm going to ask you to hopefully approve tonight. The MEF is generously supporting part of the event. They're really underwriting, bringing Matt De La Pena in, who is an author who is amazing. I was lucky enough to hear him speak at the Literacy for All conference down in Cambridge this fall, and I'm super excited for him to come visit. He is coming to speak to staff on the 8th, but he's going to come a day early so he can also work with our middle school and high school students the day before, which is amazing. He writes young adult literature, and he's got a very compelling story about identity and his sort of sense of self as a reader and how that developed late in his life. So I'm really excited about Matt coming and grateful to the MEF for their support so that we could bring him in person. Additionally, the Great Work School PTO has given us $1,000 donation. The MEA gave us $1,000 donation, and the Northeast Credit Union gave us a $500 donation. So those cash donations are great because they have we can spend them on lots of things. Like they're not as restricted as federal money, which is great. And in addition to cash donations, Horace Mann Insurance is providing lunch for the entire staff that day, which is amazing. And Congdon's Donuts is donating 12 dozen donuts, and Aroma Joe's is doing coffee and muffins and yummy breakfast items. So it really feels like a community event. So we're very excited to see it come together.
Awesome. Everything looked like the offerings looked amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun. It, like really, yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you to you and everybody who worked on it.
Yeah,
So Heidi put an
thank you.
incredible amount of work into getting this together. She also had a great committee that she worked with. So it really was a team event, but I just really need to give Heidi kudos for really, this has been a driving force of passion. And so obviously you can see the outcomes. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
James.
All right, hey everyone. Sports. We have ski team has a race tonight actually. Up at Pleasant Mountain. Their SMAA meet is this Friday, and their state meet will also be held at Pleasant Mountain on the 14th and the 15th. Girls basketball had their senior night last night against Kennebunk. This is the last game of the season, but the Hawks were really able to go out with a bang. They won, and it was really great. Unified basketball also had their senior night last night. It was a really, really fun night. Boys basketball won against Mount Ararat on the 30th, and on the 2nd, they lost against Westbrook, and then last night they also played Kennebunk. They also lost. Hockey lost against Biddeford in their last match, and they play Bridgeton this Saturday. And then indoor track has some of its members who qualified working and training for Southwesterns, which are this Saturday. So super exciting for the sports. Student Gov has the Winter Carnival coming up next Friday. A pep rally is being planned for that day on the 16th. It'll have lots of fun games and activities. And then we're also looking to get Spirit Week dress up theme days approved for the week. And we've got some advisory games planned for the 20-minute blocks. We have a Kahoot planned, a scavenger hunt, and a fun little guessing game that we found. And then Student Gov's policy group is starting to look into the attendance policy and the effect on SAC passes. And then for the extracurriculars, Interact Club has some members who got together to clean out the community closet yesterday after school. There's an abundance of donations. They're trying to figure out a better system to kind of maintain it all. The Interact leaders had a meeting with Nellie Young, and they're planning on donating $500 up front to her cause in Peru. As well as starting to plan a dodgeball tournament that they'll also give half the money made to Nelly and half to another chosen global organization. Interact has also made a team for the GOB, hosted the Great Work School for all the donations going to the Ukraine. Math team had a makeup meet last Wednesday. The previous week's meet was canceled due to weather conditions, but they were able to make it up. The team scored 211 points overall, with top scorers Kaylee Lynn and James Foss scoring 38 and 37 points. Quiz Bowl team has a meet this Saturday up at Plymouth. They're going to have 2 teams, and it's looking like it's going to be a really, really fun day. Hold met last Friday for a club walk in Vaughan Woods, which was lots of fun. They had lots of attendance, and it was really, really great day. They have their next excursion this Friday at Mount Agamenticus, and the weather looks like it'll hold up. It should be lots of fun as well. Civil rights team met yesterday to make fun little Valentine's Day hearts for decoration around the school. It was lots of fun. They're also hoping to get some new projects going in the next few weeks. GSA has a new advisor. Miss Amato has taken over for the club, and she's super excited to get it back up and running, which is awesome. Right now, she's coordinating with students about which days are best to meet after school in order to maximize their attendance. Winter Guard and Winter Percussion are still working on preparing for their first competition. That'll be on the 25th, and there'll be more to come in the next few meetings. Then we also have the One Act Play, Shakespeare's Sister. They have their home performances on March 1st and March 2nd. One of the regionals of the main drama festival will also be hosted by our school on March 8th and 9th. And 6 other schools will be competing here in order to advance to the Class A state festival. They have an incredible cast, including 10 actors in grades 9, 11, and 12. Josie D'Angelo plays the lead role, Judith Shakespeare. So that's super awesome. And just as a little bit of background for the board and anybody listening, Judith's character is taken from a Virginia Woolf book called A Room of One's Own. The book and the play are set in 1592, and they imagine what it would have happened if Shakespeare had had an equally gifted sister who tried to make it as a playwright in Elizabethan England. Mm-hmm. The show is super well put together. It looks like it's going to be a really great watch. Cool. Then for the spring musical is Mamma Mia. It's been cast and some of the practices have started. Stella Case will be playing Donna. Savannah Cook will be playing Sophie. And the whole cast is super great. It's looking like they're going to have an awesome show. And then finally we have Jazz Band. They've had a few rehearsals and they'll be choosing their music for the spring soon, and they've tried a lot of potential pieces. Last night were the inductions for the Tri-M Music Society, and 7 students were inducted based on leadership, service, and academic achievement. So lots of great stuff.
Excellent.
Very cool.
Thank you,
Thank you so
James.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just add 2 quick side notes?
Yes.
That next Tuesday, we will be going to York High School to be able to get the MIAS results, Maine Youth Health Survey results. We will have those. I've asked Sally Mannanen to come in on March 20th, if that's okay with the board, to present our data and talk a little bit about what our data tells us. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Fantastic. And that concludes our report.
Thank you so much. We have no correspondence, or we've received no correspondence upon which report. Reports of the committees, Finance and Facilities will next meet prior to our next board meeting, which is, good reminder, February 28th. So that's 3 weeks from now. We're skipping our 2-week cycle because of vacation week. Ed Policy will next meet on February 28th as well, and we have a bunch of first reads up tonight. Anybody here from Ed Policy have anything else to add to that?
Nope.
Okay.
We'll get to the reads when we get them.
Yep, okay, good. And Wellness SEL met earlier this evening and will next meet on March 6th. Please.
We had a lively wellness meeting. We were so fortunate to have some representatives from Central School, Great Work School, and the middle school come who had attended the wellness conference up at Samoset. Samoset, right? Yep. So we had a really nice download from what their big takeaways were. So I thought I would share a couple of those. One of the biggest ones was from the keynote speakers, then there were some workshops taken, but the regulated classroom is a really simple program that focuses on activators and settling for students through somatics, so using the body and different activities and things. And I was just very excited about that, of course, because that's my background. And it was so inspiring that they really recommend that all schools participate in that, something that is very universal. It's also super inexpensive. It doesn't take a lot of money to do these activities. And they've been doing a lot of experimentation since they got back, and it's just been fantastic. So there's a bunch of teachers who are going to be getting some additional training. The DOE is actually offering training in Portland in March. There's a bunch of people going to that, and there's other opportunities for learning as well. So that's really exciting. Also, there was another amazing keynote focused on nature-based learning as the basis, but that ended up really connecting so much to the use of technology. Digital dementia is actually a term. And so is doom scrolling. So I learned a couple new terms today. And he really focused a lot also on self-care for oneself, so that we have therefore extra to share and support others. And the entire conference apparently really did a great job of modeling that. So similar to what Heidi and her committee have organized with the wellness hour to go find something good to do for yourself, that was actually modeled at this particular conference. So a lot of that was taken away from that, to the point where after the meeting was over, I sat back with a few and they're like, oh my gosh, there was one more thing that we really took away and we wanted to hope to plant the seed about. And that is that for those late start, early release days, to think about, something to consider might be to like every 6 of those, or once a quarter or something, or every few months, to focus on that, to have maybe a workshop or a focus on the staff themselves, beyond, curriculum stuff. The other one was around a lot around music. And so when these folks were asked, what their to-dos are, what they came back with, and things that they're doing, there were all kinds of fun things like ocean dips. The Great Work School staff is going for
Polar plunge
all
type thing?
together.
That's cool.
Yeah, or something like that. They've been doing some staff salad bars, and they all came in, actually a bunch of them, talking about the importance of taking time to actually sit and have lunch. And maybe even with other people, and make it a thing, and not at your desks getting through emails, but to actually take 15 minutes and just sit and eat and chat and catch up and connect. There's so much more actually, but that was a lot of the basis of what we talked about. I really appreciated, actually Jerry was just making the point, and everybody jumped on board with this, and that is that teachers really need permission also, and support and opportunities to take care of themselves. So again, they have some ideas around that. There was a quote that was shared from one of the presentations they saw, that self-care versus aftercare. So making sure that it's proactive and not after the fact when we're melting down, but actually thinking ahead and how to do that and build that resilience. So we can get through the tougher times, restorative along the way instead of afterwards. We also talked, just one more thing, about phone use at schools. people are curious what our actual policies are because they're all over the place in terms of it's just really, but it's really hard. Like there's a serious addiction to the phones. And there's also mixed messages from just parent expectations with that too. There are a lot of parents out there who want their child to have the phone on them at all times. So that makes it a little bit tricky when the research is telling us that when phones are put away, we're in a better place to learn and make social connections. So there's a little trick to work through there. So we want to keep talking about that and maybe do some parent education and some other things like that to keep that conversation going. And we had other people brought up. Judge Broderick actually wrote an amazing letter, and I'm going to butcher what he said, but in essence, don't pressure your kids. I mean, can I just summarize it to that?
Just some things that we're doing
As a
we can
for our children. Yeah. The expectations are very high. Not that that's a bad thing, but you said something about one of the things that he said was that adolescence is not a rehearsal for adulthood. It's adolescence.
Yes.
Childhood is not a rehearsal
Yes.
for adolescence.
Yes.
It's childhood.
Yes.
And that just, wow, that
Yeah.
really resonated with
Yeah.
me. Let's let our kids be kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, continuing to brainstorm around that. We did not touch on food service at all. This one was like very much focused on post-conference catch-up. So we'll get back to that next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Okay, that concludes committee reports and brings us to new business. We're ready to dive in. May I have a motion, please, to approve the nomination of Dr. Naeem Sayed?
I move to approve the nomination of Dr. Naeem Syed, Director of Technology, February 22nd, 2024 to June 30th, 2024, $108,000 prorated to start date. Second, Heather?
Thank you. Please.
So I'm really pleased to be able to announce that Dr. Saeed will be joining us. He has his doctorate from Northeastern University in philosophy, also has a master's of business administration from SNHU. He has served as the Director of Technology at Manchester Community College in Manchester, New Hampshire, and then also worked for the Department of Education for the state of New Hampshire as part of their technology team, as well as being a former technology director at the Alton School District in Alton, New Hampshire. So really important to have that multiple faceted approach. Along with this, I just want to state that we have signed an agreement to work with Blue Spruce. And what that has done is we're realigning our technology department, but that agreement is going to be able to take care of the infrastructure concerns, be able to, this will be our firewalls, our servers, that they'll maintain that for us and that security. So that takes some of the pressure off the positions that we currently have. With that, at this time, we would not be filling goodness gracious, I'm trying to blank. Sure. What is it called? The network administrator. There's so many different names. Network administrator position at this time. A lot of that work would have fallen on the director with the Blue Spruce pathway. That will take some pressure off of the director, and then the director would take more of the network administration role going forward. I just want to really give a shout out to our technology team as in the state of transition. Today we lost PaperCut for a little while, which is our ability to print, and they were right on and fixed it right away for us. So I just want to give them the props as well.
Great.
But I'm excited to have
That's
Dr.
awesome.
Saeed joining us.
So is this a temporary position since you have an end date?
That's the first year of the contract, and so
Oh.
that's the that'll we prorated to that. Then we'd obviously
Oh.
yeah.
Any other questions? All in favor? It's 4-0. Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Syed. Motion, please, to approve the donation from Kennebunk Savings.
I move to approve a donation for the Elliott Elementary School Playground Enhancement Project in the amount of $5,000 from Kennebunk Savings Bank.
Second, Jen?
Jen, thank you. Sounds good.
Dr. Harrison, do you want to comment on exciting?
Yeah, so it's part of our playground enhancement work, and we continue to raise funds. We are at the point right now where we've raised about $109,000, thanks to you folks and others. And right now we're short of our goal by about 26,500. In that last piece of the project is referred to as the inclusive swirl. It's an ADA piece of equipment that meets that criteria, which is very important to the community. That's reflected throughout our playground. All kids can access the wonderful pieces of equipment that are available. So we're working with a handful of other folks right now to raise that difference. And with that, we got reason to believe people are going to give us assistance.
That's great. Thank you. Questions, comments, all in favor? Thank you, Kennebuck Savings. That's 4-0.
Thank you.
Motion please to approve the donation toward the March 8th date from Great Works PTO.
Move we approve a donation for the March 8th Professional Development Day in the amount of $1,000 from the Great Works School PTO.
Second, Jen?
Jen, thank you. Speaks for itself.
Yep.
This was the exciting stuff that Heidi was talking
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Great Works PTO.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor? I think there should be any, or needs to be any discussion on that. Thank you. That's 4-0. A motion please to consider the donation from the MEF.
I move to approve a donation for the March 8th Professional Development Day in the amount of $3,000 from the Marshford Education Foundation.
Second, Heather.
Heather, thank you. Same. Thank you, MEF.
Awesome. Excellent.
Comments, questions? All in favor? That's 4-0. Thank you.
May I just say something real quickly? Just as a point of reference, our policy that we follow is that if it's a donation of greater than $500 in value. So
Yep,
that's why
yep.
some of these things are here and some of them are not.
Mhm.
This is more the formal process, so if you may be wondering, why is this one on there, not, not Condon's Donuts or whatever.
Yes.
Right. I do approve of the donuts, though.
Right.
Can I have a motion, please, to approve the donation from the MEA?
I move to approve a donation for the March 8th Professional Development Day in the amount of $1,000 from the Maine Education Association.
I'll second, Lisa.
Lisa, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? 4-0. Thank you, MEA. Motion for the donation from the Northeast Credit Union.
Move to approve a donation for the March 8th Professional Development Day in the amount of $500 from Northeast Credit Union.
Second, Heather.
Heather, thank you. Comments or questions? All in favor? That's 4-0. Thank you, Northeast Credit Union. Okay, a motion to consider the IIB policy.
I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy IIB, class size policy.
Second, Heather.
Okay. We discussed earlier, of course, not making changes to the numbers, but
Right.
there's some language changes. Minor language changes. And it's just clarification around which of the rules is involved. Comments or questions? All in favor? That's 4-0. That'll be back in 3 weeks. Motion please with regards to BHC.
I move, go ahead.
I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy ADAA, school system commitment.
Did you jump one?
Oh, did I? Oh, you guys, I'm so sorry. Sorry. I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy BHC, board relationships and communication with staff. Sure did.
Second, Jen.
And I apologize for speaking out of
no,
order
no,
while you were
that's-
making a motion, but,
That's okay. Thank you.
okay. So this is brand new.
This is brand new. This is one of the recommendations that came from MSMA as they did our policy
Yep.
review. So we're still going through that list that was put together by Charlotte Bates for us.
Okay. One thing I would note is that it does not have BHC at the top of the paper, so if you make sure that gets added.
Oh, yeah.
there.
Got it.
But I read through this earlier in the day, and I think it very clearly spells out the relationship that we understand the board to have with each of the named entities. It's good to have it written down so that the public will understand as well.
And with the staff, our relationship with staff.
Mhm.
And yeah.
This is the most minor of things. The motion says communication with staff and the title says communications with staff. I don't know if that's relevant or not. There's an S in communications in the title, but not on the motion.
I don't think it jeopardizes the motion, but we
I
should.
don't either.
We should make the correction.
Make sure that
Yeah.
the actual policy is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Corrected
Okay.
for the final.
I think. Yeah, it says communications with an S
Everywhere else in the policy.
everywhere else,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it's, I don't know
I
if
don't
it's
think it's
necessary,
relevant,
but
no.
it doesn't, probably doesn't matter, just be consistent.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor? 4-0. Then I'll be back in 3 weeks as well. Motion please with regard to ADAA.
I'll try it again. Move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy ADAA, school system commitment to standards for ethical and responsible behavior for students.
Second, Jen.
Jen, thank you. This is an existing policy with a bunch of markups.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time on this policy.
Yeah.
This is
Yep.
the one that I think. I think, if you don't mind me saying, Jen, Lisa, I think one of the things that we really tried to address was that the sample policy that was provided for us philosophically didn't match with where we were as a district. And I think the terminology that was used that I think was concerning was the prescription of consequences.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so we really wanted to have more of a growth mindset around, mistakes or obviously opportunities to learn. Obviously, we understand that there may be consequences, but the prescription of consequences just really seems to dehumanize the process. And so we tried to eliminate that type of language in the policy. as we
It sounds like minimum sentencing guidelines.
Yeah.
We don't wanna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's language in this that suggests that we ought to be on a regular basis revisiting the core values. So
Yep.
Yes,
we
yes.
should make sure that that's somehow on our radar, as it were.
And we had talked about over the next year, not now, but next year, beginning to work on the strategic plan.
Yep.
And being able to kind of get that vision of the district, and that is some of the time that we open up that conversation and invite stakeholders in to be a part of that conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, this looks
Mhm.
good.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Okay, that's 4-0. And again, that'll be back in 3 weeks. And motion, please, for rescinding of CGD.
Move to rescind policy CGD federal funds.
Second, Jen.
This is already covered under a current policy that we have, and so we just can get rid of it.
Unclogging.
Yep.
That's good. Questions, comments?
No.
All in favor? Okay, that's 4-0.
If you don't mind me saying, you can see that some of this was some really important housekeeping,
Sure.
because some of these policies hadn't been touched in a while.
Yeah.
And so really going
1975.
through with what we need to get rid of. 2009 was the last one, they really
Oh,
should be on a 5-year
2003.
cycle.
Yeah.
The federal funds policy, I think will say 2003,
2003.
and so these are obviously, this is why, Charlotte was really helpful with us to be able to kind of systematically go through and let's get everything right sized.
It's good. Okay, now the fun stuff. Motion, please, to approve the Elliott Recreation Department request.
I move to approve the Elliott Recreation Department's use of MSAD number 35 transportation for a kids' play before and after school program field trip to Dover Ice Arena on February 20th, 2024.
I'll second, Lisa.
Thank you. There's a letter in our packet.
Can I go? So that's during school break.
Yes.
Cool.
Great to see these things coming back.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it absolutely is. Comments or questions? All in favor? Okay, 4-0. Thank you. Move to the next one. Motion, please, to approve the Elliott Recreation Department request for Smitty's Cinema.
I move to approve the Elliott Recreation Department's use of MSAD 35 transportation for a kids' play before and after school program field trip to Smitty Cinema on February 23rd, 2024.
Second, Heather.
Same kind of thing. This is also during February break.
Yes.
Yep,
Yep.
great. Questions, comments? All in favor? 4-0, thank you. A motion, please, with regard to the softball team trip.
I move to approve the Marshwood High School softball team to take a booster-funded trip to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for spring training.
Second, Heather.
Heather, thank you. There's a form in our packet that details all of this, who's going, who's chaperoning. Exciting opportunity for the softball team.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever this happens, I think it's, you know, sport trips are sometimes a little bit tricky, and Mr. Buzzell did a great job with this, because this can't be, you know, an economic issue where families are saying, if you can't pay to go to Pigeon Forge, you can't be on the team soccer.
Yes.
You have to be very clear about that, make this open to everybody. This can't be a barrier for students to be able to have the experience, so this should be an add-on. It's an exciting opportunity and do some fundraising, but it's really important to note that.
Great. Comments or questions? All in favor? It's 4-0 as well. Thank you. Go softball. And then we have two motions regards to these course additions.
Move to approve the addition of Drawing 2 to the Marshwood High School course of studies.
Second, Jen.
Jen? Questions, comments? All in favor? It's 4-0, thank you. And the second one, please?
Move to approve the addition of quantitative reasoning to the Marshwood High School course of studies.
Second, Jen.
Thank you. Comments or questions? All in favor? 4-0. 4-0. Very good. That brings us to the end of new business and into the building administrator check-in. Please.
So just a couple of things. One, we talked a lot about the rent grant. So we got $140,000. That's coming to an end at the end of the school year. We've got 3 big projects left. I think we've got $35,000. Ryan has been great working with us. One is, I think I told you at the last meeting, you know, and probably within a month, a lot of that wooded area up behind school with all the ash trees, that's going to have to come down because of the disease with the ash, the borer. But with the contract, he's going to be taking, I think, 20, 25 trees. The arborist is going to be replanting in the spring. So it's not just, we're not going to just clear cut. So that's one thing. We're going to be building a class-size deck kind of over an embankment where we're able to take kids out, and it's going to be part of the playground, but it's also, you know, it's a place where, you know, the art class can go out. And you could put a whole class out there. That's the second. And third is we have a muralist that's coming. It's an up-and-coming muralist. I've got the contract, but I haven't seen the design yet. But it's out behind the art room. We've got it's as I say, an up-and-coming artist that has done a lot of Wabanaki work in the city of Portland, and so that's going to be on the back side of our building, which we're really excited about.
Very cool.
And the other is just kindness. I'd like to share stories with you. As you may know, we had a family in South Berwick that lost everything in a fire. So I had 2 girls come to me, 2 fifth-grade girls, don't even know this kiddo, came to me and said, Mr. Brunel, we have to do something. And so they designed an ice cream sale for, actually it's going on tomorrow. And right now, I think they've raised almost $900.
Wow.
Okay, Fogarty's donated the ice cream, but it's just that, you know, to do something nice to tell someone else. And the other is Mr. Hubbard, who's our custodian. And I asked him, I said, can I tell this story? We've got a kiddo that sometimes his trousers don't stay up. Okay, it just doesn't happen. And whether it's pants or whether it's, you know, when you go out and you've got your snow pants on. I come in on a Monday, and he's got suspenders. And I said, that's great. And story got around, and Mr. Hubbard did not, I mean, I had to go find out, but he was out shopping one day, and he knows this kiddo, and he told his wife, you know, he needs to spend this. And so it just, and every school does this. I mean, this isn't just something special about Great Works. There are so many of our staff members do wonderful things for kids that you never see. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Entered the word trousers in a while. Huskies, some of the other things, Toughskins.
We have a really fun week this week. Tomorrow night is our sixth annual art and literacy night. That's really Pam Mulcahy and Brenda Stewart's baby. It's a really favorite night of ours because it's families and children come together, and we do a community read. This year it's Daniel Finds a Poem. So we have guest staff are reading for the different groups. They all RSVP'd early, so we know all the groups, and then families and children create art together and write poems together. So it's just a really beautiful night. So that's tomorrow. And then Friday is our 19th annual 100th Day of Giving. So in elementary school, the 100th Day of School is a really big deal. So 19 years ago, Pam Mulcahy, this is her baby, where she brought to us the idea that we all month every classroom collects different food for the food pantry. We work closely with the food pantry and get the list of what they're needed. So the goal is to collect 100 of the different items. They have thermometers outside their doors, so they check it every day to see how many we have. I think we had like 100 fruit bars coming today. It kind of gets a little competitive at the end. And then on Friday, they all create designs with whatever they collected, and we get to go see the sculptures. And again, bringing back all the parents coming. So I think it's going to be very, very well attended. So just a big, again, Pam is behind all that. She's probably still at school cutting poem strips out and getting ready for the big. So so thankful for Pam and everything she does.
Nice.
Thank you.
So Lisa referenced the regulated classroom. Elliott Elementary School and Central School will join us tomorrow. Emily Daniels will be presenting to staff as a professional development experience. So we're excited about that for tomorrow. I just want to say to James and his friends that are Hawk Buddies, what an incredible program. The impression that they made that they continue to make on our kids is profound. Because of our administrative team meetings are on Monday afternoons, I don't get a chance often to go down and observe. And I got that opportunity because we didn't have an administrative team meeting. It was unbelievable. Some of our kids, well, all of the kids that were down there were matched up with a Hawk Buddy. The kids were just themselves, and the high school students were so kind and thoughtful in mentoring those little guys and gals. So thank you, James. Much appreciated. We spent last week, it was the Great Kindness Challenge, and we had a number of things that went on in our school. We had a wonderful celebration. Our civil rights team, third grade kids, led the Tiny Lights production. It was Tiny Lights is a song. It's a beautiful song, and the gymnasium was full of staff and kids, and we encircled the students with chains, little chain links, circled them all, and each chain link a student made and a staff member made, and put a kindness statement on it. It was just beautiful. And so the kids did a great job with that. We had the Cromwell Center come in, a representative, worked with the kids in the area of kindness. We had a wonderful puppet show. A gal came in and did some work with our kids in the library. It was just so funny. The great part of it was kids were hilarious. They just couldn't stop laughing. It was such fun. So it was a big month at Elliott Elementary Schools, so thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any last comments from the board? No, in that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? That is 4